Welcome back to another episode of the On Pace podcast. I'm your host, James Fuller, right here. And today is a great day because I get to have one of my favorite people on as a guest again. This is the second time. And she was on the 12th episode of the On Pace podcast. And on that episode, we talked about the 3 C's: real estate, banking, reeling. If you know Rachel, you know that she is huge into social media and doing reels. And so that was a great episode. I encourage you to go back and listen to that, episode 12, where we went all over the place. And so we are very diligent this time about trying to stay on topic. And we're going to see how that goes. It probably won't go that well, but we have fun when we're having conversations, and I'm very excited to have Rachel back on the podcast for this episode. So Rachel, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks. It's going to go great. We're going to stay on task the entire time. And on task is just having a nice, candid conversation. So 100% of the time. There
you go. It's hard to believe it's been 2 years. Like, it seems like
I can't believe it's been 2 years. I feel like it was yesterday. I know that sounds like, I feel like such an old fogey to be like, time flies when you get, the older you get, the faster it goes. But
it's true. I feel like that's where I'm at in life. I feel like time just flies by. So
yes, we just need to put it on the calendar every year.
Yeah, because that's what I was saying. In June is where you were on the podcast. The 12th episode was, I think, June 17th or something like that. And here we are at the end of June or middle of June. And so we missed it by maybe like 3 or 4 days. But here we are.
Nope,
2 days later, or 2 years later.
We've been talking about this for.
Let's see. So this is the 23rd. We've
got to get back on the podcast. We've got to do the podcast together again. And here we are, finally making it happen.
Yeah, there we are. You froze up for a second, so I apologize if I overtalked you there. But
no, it's okay. The same thing's happening on your side. So I'm trying to make sure that I'm like listening and doing exactly what I need to do.
We'll try to eliminate the long pauses between conversations. So this is the 23rd episode of the On Pace podcast. So thank you so much for tuning in. And
absolutely.
This is, I'd like to first start out with just saying, if you don't already subscribe to the podcast, please follow the On Pace podcast on whatever platform you listen to. Ratings, reviews, all those things are greatly appreciated. They help us grow the podcast. And Rachel knows so much about that because she's doing the same thing on her podcast. And we'll get into that in just a minute. And so just want to put a plug in there. If you want to email me, you can email me at the onpacepodcast@icloud.com, or you can find me on social media, send me messages, whatever. And same with Rachel. You'll be able to get all that deets whenever we talk about her podcast as well. So Rachel, we'll start out. Tell me what's new with you.
Yes, lots of things are new, actually. And honestly, I feel like every time I talk to somebody and they ask me, what's going on in your world? I'm like, everything is happening in my world all of the time. There's very few days of my life that I'm like, really, nothing is happening. I like to keep it fresh, but we've had a lot of change happening inside of our world. To go back to what you were saying about the podcast, I relaunched the podcast earlier this year. I had started doing podcasting probably 3 years ago, and it was more of a hobby, kind of a side thing. I'm going to like shoot some episodes and hope to see some growth. But it turns out podcasting, YouTube, all of this stuff is so much harder to grow on than something like Instagram. So because I wasn't getting immediate, honestly, because I wasn't getting instant gratification from it, I kind of took off the gas. But this year I knew after going to family reunion with Keller Williams that I needed to be more intentional and I needed to stay consistent with it. So I've picked some different topics and I'm trying to focus in a little bit more on those things. And while also remaining all over the board, let's be honest. But consistency has been the most important thing on this. Trying to make sure that every single week I have a new episode that is coming out, that we're picking the right day of the week every week, and that we're going on from there. So the topic of the podcast, it's Beyond the Desk, and we talk about real estate, we talk about homeschooling, and we talk about life unbound. And the life unbound piece is just it just gives me liberty to talk about whatever I want to, whenever I want to, really, let's be honest. But the real estate portion, obviously, I'm a real estate agent. Homeschooling is something that's kind of come up over the past year that we're doing. And it's been interesting getting to talk about education as a whole on the podcast. And to be completely transparent, I've gotten more followers and subscribers and likes and comments and all of those things since starting that section of the podcast than I have any other niche inside of that space.
Well, and you've talked many times about people want relatable content. And so you can get out there as a realtor or a banker or whatever, and you can put out content that's specific to your job and keep it very much in a box, and you'll build a following of some sort, but you're not going to get the people that are looking for more of your life, more of that relatability. And I'm sure with the homeschooling piece, like that is a area that a lot of people have questions. A lot of people genuinely are curious about what options are out there. I think that it's no secret that there's some concerns from parents into what their children are exposed to and those kind of things. And so it is one of those things that you may decide to stay in public school. You may decide to go to private school. You may decide to homeschool. It's a lot of just wanting to know the options that are there and the details about those options. And I think some people just don't know what they can possibly do. And so they're looking for those answers in whatever medium they can find. And, I think you definitely, like you mentioned, finding a niche that you can fit into and talk about is huge. And I think it's crazy how you've tied real estate and homeschooling, all these things into a podcast is so cool. So
it is, it's a ton. What I love about the homeschooling piece of it is that at the end of the day, no matter which way you choose to educate your children, homeschool, public school, private school, whatever, it is up to you. You, the parent, are ultimately the person who is educating your child, and you are selecting the tools in which you are going to use to educate your child. Right. Most of the time, I feel like people feel like public school is the only answer that they have. And for a lot of people, it is. That is true. The public school is the only answer that they have. But whenever you take a look at it a little bit of a different way, both Nick and I work full-time jobs, and we're able to homeschool our boys. Understanding what homeschooling was going to look like, having full-time jobs, ultimately made the choice for us. Like, okay, we can do this. We're already doing 2 hours of homework a night. We're already, doing all this other stuff with them, add 2 more hours to it. And that's a homeschool day. And then we can move on from there. But I think that yes, options. And sometimes people are just curious whether they homeschool or not. I think hearing like the life of a homeschooler, what it's like, it's a growing movement. There's a lot of people that are trying to do it. It doesn't look the same as it did back in the 90s or the 2000s, or even really 5 years ago when COVID hit. And I think kind of having an insight to that ever evolving choice is interesting. But yeah, nope, that's it. That's pretty much all that we talked about in the podcast. But we talked about social media last time, and, to give some like kind of insight on how I try and dissect that, I follow the 80-20 principle on just about everything in life. And 20% of the time I'm trying to talk about real estate, but 80% of the time I have other topics that I'm trying to talk about as well. So 50% of it is homeschool related. I've got roughly 30% that's travel, life unbound related, and then 20% that's related to real estate. And it keeps me on track as far as growth goes.
Well, we're going to bring all those into this podcast. So
I'm so
just
excited.
Stay tuned. So let's first talk about a few things that I know are new with you. So I hear you got a new ride. Yes. So let's talk about this new ride. And it's been kind of a progression. It's funny because, I think there was one vehicle and then there was another vehicle. And I'm excited about this one because this sounds like this is going to be, people talk about their forever home. It's like, this is your forever car. And it sounds like you have a pretty funny story that goes along with the purchase. So if you want to share any of that, I think it'd be funny. So
I'm totally an open book. So we have made, I just want to like pat myself on the back and say, Nick and I in the last 10 years of marriage have made really relatively good financial choices. Like very little have we done that we've been like, what on earth were we thinking? We have taken a huge hit on. And vehicles, we had 2 paid off vehicles for the longest time. We kept them. The market was really good. I was working full time in the office. This was before we decided to homeschool the boys. And we bought a brand new Toyota Highlander last year, March. So this is
That's
the beginning
the height of the market. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, like a $6,000 premium on that vehicle. Like I had a down payment on it, but the majority of it went to stupid tax is really what it was. Gotcha. So we got a brand new 2023 hybrid platinum Highlander.
Fully loaded, like everything.
I mean, I could cry thinking about that car. It was beautiful. But the payment was absurd. And when things started changing, when we realized we've got to get JD home, we've got to do some different things, you know, the payment became more annoying than it was helpful. The car itself was not worth what we were paying for it. So we decided to trade it in. We get great value from it. It was awesome. We traded out of it at higher than what we had expected and got a CX-9, a SUV CX-9. And this was before we'd actually really thought about what we should have done. We just did what we had to do to get out of that payment. We cut the payment in half. We got this CX-9. CX-9s are great vehicles, right? Fast forward, and we realized instead of trading the Highlander for the CX-9, we should have traded the Highlander for a very inexpensive, fuel-efficient car. And then we should have traded Nick's truck for something bigger that would pull the camper. And that way we have this like big family car that would carry all the dogs and all of our children and all of our crap and this small commuter vehicle that Nick and I can trade back and forth on. Like we don't have Nick's car and Rachel's car anymore. We have who's driving the farthest, who drives the smaller car.
Yeah.
So we have the CX-9 and we're trying to sell it on Facebook. And the car market now, as opposed to last year, is garbage. Nobody wants to buy a car. Used, new, whatever. Nobody wants to do it. And I kept getting these like lowball offers on Facebook. Would you take $17,000 cash for this right now? And I've got it listed at $26,000. I really need like 23 to 24. Yeah. And I was willing to haggle, but I was not willing to take $17,000. We were offered 21 at a dealership for a trade-in back in March. And we thought, we're going to wait and see what happens on Facebook. Yeah. We shouldn't, well, at this point, once you hear what happened, I'm glad we waited. But we really should have taken it at that point and moved on. So what we decided to do was to trade in two vehicles. We traded in the CX-9 so that we could get rid of that payment. And then we traded in Nick's Titan essentially as the down payment on the new vehicle. We got some tax savings on it because, you know, you trade in, you get some tax savings. We ended up getting a QX80, which is the Infinity version of an Armada. Yeah. I'm saying it and I'm questioning myself now. Fantastic vehicle. When they did the numbers, they came back and said, we want to give you $16,000 for the truck, which we were a little disappointed about because it's a really nice truck. Yeah. And then they told us they were going to give us $25,500 for the CX-9. Sign the dotted line. I was like, yes, thank you. Absolutely. Yeah. It was a little bit less on the truck, but everything equaled out. We knew in our mind the number that we wanted to hit for both vehicles. They had an QX80 on their Memphis lot, and they just had to overnight it. It had 9 out of 10 on the checkpoints, whatever. The pictures looked great. Carfax were awesome. I picked it up on Friday, and I feel about this vehicle almost the same that I felt about the Highlander whenever I got it last year. Like, there you go. It's pretty cool. The technology is a little bit dated. It is new enough that I have all of the Bluetooth. Everything is like click, you know, like I don't have any, everything is, what am I trying to say? It's electric. The seat moving, it moves. It's great. There are buttons to have things moving. You're frozen. And I don't know if you responded or not. So I'm just going to keep talking. It has heated and cooled seats. It has a entertainment system for the boys. I think so too. I'm trying not to just like take up the entire time talking, but sometimes you like totally freeze and I can't figure out where we're at. Anyway, so it's got an entertainment system for the boys. We put the thing in, we put the DVD in, and it has like a 6-disc like change system. What the Highlander didn't have that this QX80 has is a disc changer. And I love that I can play my CDs now. Like I needed to be old enough that I can do the things that I did as a millennial and new enough that I can do the things that I need to do in 2024. Long story short, whenever I went in to pick it up, the sales rep looked at me and he said, they made a mistake. And I was a little bit afraid at that moment that like, okay, this isn't going to happen. What's happening here? He said that so the boss man was there that day, and he had to ride with me on the test drive for the initial test drive on Wednesday. And while he was doing that, they had somebody else at the dealership run the numbers on our vehicle. And this person does not typically run numbers on the vehicle. Instead of putting the true mileage, which I can't even remember what it is now, they put the number that they saw from the trip odometer, which was 8,000. They only put 8,000 miles in and got the KBB value of that vehicle as if it only had 8,000 miles. They took like a $10,000 loss on that.
Oh, geez.
But we won.
Yes.
It was great.
And you'd already signed.
I can't promise you it's going to happen. Oh, everybody had already signed. The dealership signed. We signed. They circled it. The finance guy, which is a totally different story, he was a finance guy. Not that finance guys are bad, James. I realize who I'm talking to now.
It's all good.
He was interesting. Anyway, he's like circling it, and he's like, this is all we're giving you for this car. Anyway, in retrospect, I'm like, that's all you're giving me. That's what you're giving me for the car. And we're moving on. So
I'm going to cry tears. So
I know. Anyway,
that is pretty awesome.
That's not exactly a tip. You can't like tell people, hey, go to a dealership and.
Yeah. But the thing is that's something that I think, we're talking about being frugal and finding deals. I mean, it's definitely something that I think you made a decision to better your financial position and got out of the deal what you really wanted. And it just so happened that it worked out even better than what you were even expecting. So that's pretty awesome. So,
and we got 2 key fobs. I've never gotten 2 key fobs. I know.
So Mandy's car does not have 2 key fobs. We have a second one that we bought, but we haven't had it programmed yet. And it's really frustrating. And it's stressful to me because like, if you lose that 1 key fob, like you're in trouble.
You're in trouble.
So we got to get that second one programmed. That's a huge deal. So see, my car doesn't have any key fobs. Like you use your phone. And so anybody's phone can be a key. So
nice.
But back to the thing you were talking about. So I'm assuming that the QX80 is going to pull the RV.
Yes, it will. It will definitely pull the camper.
So that's what Mandy and I do. Like we switch off. So she drives my car. I drive hers. Like,
whoever's going the farthest, whoever needs the most fuel efficient vehicle, that's who's driving that today. The boys are calling the QX80 Nix, and I'm like,
this is Mama's ride.
Is it? We're going to call it our car, but
there you go.
It's got my settings. So
are you number 1 or number 2 in the settings? That's the key.
Oh, I'm totally number 1. Yeah, you can ask me again.
There it is. I'll edit that where it flows.
Right.
Mandy's number 1 in her SUV too.
Of course.
So that's the way it goes. So y'all recently relocated the Tullahoma KW over from the Atlantic Street to now you're on Kings Lane. And so talk a little bit about your transition. I know that y'all are kind of getting settled into the new office. You have your own really nice room office there. And, let's talk a little bit about the market conditions that you're seeing as part of that as well. So.
Absolutely. I definitely talked over you a second ago. I don't know if you heard what I said, but I just wanted
we'll figure it out whenever I edit it later.
Okay, cool. So we just moved from, like you said, from Atlantic Street over here to Kings Lane. A lot of it was because we had this like big open concept office and our agents were really wanting to have individual office spaces. While like the appeal of having that Selling Sunset big open industrial space is really exciting, we needed to have office spaces. And this was the only one that was available in Tullahoma that made the most amount of sense. It was an old doctor's office and had all of these exam rooms in it. So we had to remove some medical equipment and then put the agents in here. But whenever we opened the office on Atlantic Street back last year, we had less than 12 agents. And today we now have broken past 30 agents. So we're able to serve them so much better inside of this space than we were in the other space.
That's incredible that y'all have that many agents in the local.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was not an easy, hold on a second. You changed something and I can't see you. Can you see you?
I can see me, but I can't see you. And I turned on a low data mode thinking maybe that would help with the audio.
No, it's totally helping. Like, I think it is helping. And I'm sorry to
can't see you. No, it's all good.
Bypass. I just wanted to make sure that something wasn't wrong. Okay, back to
Let's try to go
my
back.
favorite part about having this space is that the training has totally different, is totally different. Like we have the ability to train more and better. We've got a conference room where people can come in and we sit and do our different training courses. I can teach Zoom from just about any room inside of the space. We've got our tech trainer and our coach that comes in once per week, and they've got their own private space that they can go to with the individual agents and go through all of the different things. I mean, it's amazing how many opportunities have opened up just by moving into this building.
That's so cool.
It
That's
almost
awesome.
feels too small already, which is exciting. But
Well, with 30 agents and all of them vying for an office or a spot to close a loan, I mean, close a deal. That's a big deal. So
that's
what
a
are you
lot.
seeing as far as in the market, say in Tullahoma, surrounding areas? What are you, obviously from the banking perspective, we, are hopeful that we're going to start seeing rates kind of trend down in the coming months. I am not a conspiracy theorist, but I do think that ironically, those rates will probably start dropping sometime before the November election. But what are you seeing in the market side of things that kind of give you either warm and fuzzies or not so much, from the inventory on the market, how long those things are sitting now versus maybe 2 or 3 years ago when we spoke, just what are you seeing in the market?
Absolutely. So I think that cautiously optimistic is how I live my life just on a day-to-day basis, like I prefer to be glass half full, but I don't want to completely exclude the idea that risk is there in anything that you're doing. So cautiously optimistic. Interest rates did not drop as fast as we thought that they would, or they did not. And I think that the fallacy that buyers have is that it was going to drop significantly. They raise fast, they are slow to go low.
Right.
And what they wanted was the 7.5% overnight to go down to 4. And they're realizing that that just is not how interest rates work. We have experienced higher than COVID interest rates now for nearly 2 years. August of 2022 was when we saw that rate spike and the market essentially halt. And then people figured it out. Lenders were offering bigger incentives, sellers were offering things, and we kept moving forward. Now what we have is a huge group of people that either purchased or refinanced in 2020 to 2022 with these 2%, 3% interest rates. And while they understand that 7.5 is a very normal average interest rate, they're tripling or quadrupling their mortgage by moving into something different. And so there's definitely a lot of hesitancy in making the decision to move. Is it the right financial decision in order to be able to, do I need more space that bad that I'm going to have to get a bigger shovel? We're going to have more jobs, or can I deal with what I'm in right now? The reality is I could not buy my house right now as it sits with the interest rate and with the price that it would go for at this time. Yeah. And so I try and have a lot of compassion whenever it comes to a tough market like this, that when people are looking for a home, that the price really is challenging.
And I'll add to that, I think that's where it's so important for people that are looking for a home to have the conversation with the banker or their lender as soon as possible to know what the affordability is, because the last thing you want to do is you don't want to sit down with a real estate agent and look at houses that you learn in the inspection process of that home that, hey, this is not something we can really afford. That creates a big challenge for you as a real estate agent to deliver that news to those individuals when really their banker or somebody should have had that conversation, because just because they make sense on paper doesn't mean they really can afford it in real life. So
no, absolutely. And we are seeing that over and over again. So typically I list homes. If you look at like the average between my buyers and sellers, I have more sellers than I do buyers. And what we are struggling with right now is we have this great home that's available for somebody. It's typically the starter home price range, because mostly I work with an investor that flips starter homes for affordable housing. These people are coming in and they're well qualified. They have good down payments. They have a decent amount of earnest money. But then once we get to the inspection, they take a look at it, and things that people typically are like, that's perfectly fine, we can move forward on, or if you could fix this, that would be great, we can move forward on this. They're panicking over mold and crawl spaces. I mean, we live in Tennessee. It's a swamp here. While I am not a mold remediation expert, nor am I a crawl space expert, I can tell you that 9 times out of 10, whenever we're getting home inspection reports back, there's mold in a crawl space and somebody's saying that it needs to have this specific kind of wrap underneath it in order for you to be able to move forward. If you pull from a deal because of that, you're going to pull from every deal because of that. But if the reason you're pulling from that is because you're scared of mold in a crawl space, it's a different conversation than we're pulling from the deal because you don't have the funds to be able to remediate that after you close the house. What people forget is that when you're buying a used home, it is a used home. If it's more than 5 years old, you're going to have something that's going to have to be fixed. And those things are not cheap. Right. They're not taking into account HVAC units going out, roofs needing to be replaced, hot water heaters needing to be replaced, flooring needing to be, a water leak that makes you have to, completely redo your bathroom. While insurance will cover some of it, likely it won't cover all of it. And so not only do you have to be financially prepared to purchase a loan, you have to be financially prepared for home ownership. And especially in that starter price range, we're seeing buyer hesitancy. They're still purchasing. It's just they're a little bit more hesitant. They're a little bit more fickle. Deals are falling through during the home inspection process because they're realizing the cost of home ownership.
Well, I think it's crazy that the starter home today is not the same starter home from 10 years ago. So it's not a $75,000 to $110,000 home. I mean, our very first home was I think we bought it for $105,000. You could not buy that home today. And I'm pretty sure that home, if we had kept it today, would be worth probably $300,000. So it's very different. And then you have the higher interest rates. So it is difficult right now for people that are looking for those starter homes to find a right fit that they can afford, in the price range that they're looking for. So,
yes, I think that starter home price range is definitely the more fast moving of the price ranges. Your second and third homes, these bigger homes, are not moving as quickly as they were, 2 years ago. Yep. But the starter homes really have a tendency to move more quickly because they're starter homes. Starter homes are always going to be in some sort of demand, but they are also retirement homes. So if somebody is moving from this big McMansion and they're looking to downsize, typically it's you have a first-time home buyer with a loan and zero down versus a retiree with cash. And that can be a little bit challenging for those first-time home buyers. You'd mentioned supply, and I think I can touch on that right now.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay,
if
awesome.
You can hear me.
I can. I know. I was like, give me a nod. Blink
this
twice.
This is gonna be very interesting whenever I go back to edit to see, because it's still recording even though you're freezing or I'm freezing. So it'll be interesting.
Oh, I can't wait to listen back to it and see how much you've attempted to try and talk as I am talking.
I'll try
nonstop.
To clean that up so it doesn't sound like we're talking over each other.
I'm so sorry. Okay.
No, it is all good.
All right. Okay. So we like to look at things on a national scale. When people are looking at the market, when buyers and sellers are asking me questions about what's happening in the market, typically they're getting their information from a national news source. What's happening in Chicago, what's happening in Detroit, what's happening in Anaheim, LA, we're seeing these numbers. And when you're looking across the country, we have a huge, very, very, very broad, section of numbers to be dissecting. And that average skews higher because of those larger markets. We're in a lot smaller of a market in Tullahoma, Winchester, McMinnville area. And when people are seeing those big city stats, they try and, take that and copy paste it into our area. Well, I know that the housing market is doing this. And it's hard as a real estate agent. You're having to listen. I need to know and understand what's happening on a national scale so that I can let you know, yes, here are some things that are happening that I'm seeing here, but overall our market is doing X. And here are some examples. So I pulled some numbers from our local markets, Tullahoma, McMinnville, Winchester. And then I pulled numbers from the Murfreesboro and Nashville market. So you have, in those three, you have your primary market, your big city, Nashville. You have a secondary market, which would be Murfreesboro. And then we're a tertiary market in the outskirts. We're not immediately touching one of those big cities, but we're within an hour and a half. And what we're seeing in Nashville right now, according to these stats, is roughly 3 months of supply. Supply in terms of months, whenever we say 3 months supply, what that is saying is that it would take this many months in order to deplete the number of houses available on the market with the current buyer demand. So with the number of buyers that we have, do what?
If no more were added. So
if no more were added.
Gotcha.
Yes. So this exact, these houses right now that are available, nothing else. With the amount of demand that we have, it would take this long for that number of houses to go away. Less than 3 months supply would be a seller's market. When we were at the peak seller's market back in like 2021, there were some areas that had less than 1 month supply of housing available, which is insane. When people are saying, oh, prices are ridiculous and people were offering so much over, we were in such an intense seller's market that you truly did not have a choice but to do it.
Yeah.
And in retrospect, if you were not willing to do the thing back in 2020, then you're missing out now, because in 2020, your interest rate was 3-4%. Your home prices, you might have had to have paid $20,000 or $30,000 over the asking price. But today, those prices have increased significantly and your interest rate is higher. But you can get some seller concessions. Your monthly payment's still a whole lot more, even though the market's in your favor. It's just not, it's not the same.
It's very unique.
So when you have it is unique. And when you have an agent that's telling you, again, cautiously optimistic, when it's time for you to buy or sell, it's time for you to buy or sell. We're going to find the silver lining no matter what. But when you have hordes of real estate agents saying, y'all, this is it, like this is the time to do it, there's a reason. And if you look at the numbers and you understand it, then you'll be able to see why. So in our Nashville, Murfreesboro market, Murfreesboro still has only 2 months supply. Nashville has roughly 3. When you come into our Tullahoma, McMinnville, and Winchester markets, you're looking at almost 4 months supply in Tullahoma, 4 months supply in McMinnville, and 5 months in Winchester.
Wow.
And that's for May. Like that, this is peak year. We are in selling season, and there's 5 months supply in Winchester right now. Anything between 3 and 6 months is considered a neutral market. Sometimes sellers win, sometimes buyers win. Typically, it's a win-win. Anything above 6 months supply, you're in a buyer's market. You're asking $50,000 off the purchase price. You're getting all the things just like the sellers were getting in 2020. The hardest part of this is having sellers understand that we are not in the market that we were in. We are predicting your home sale for a market that we do not know based off of numbers that are from the past. And so if you're listing your house and you're saying, well, I think I want to try and list it for $20,000 more than that, like let's try and max this out, you will lose. You have to price your home for what we are projecting this new market to be. And if you're not doing it with the understanding that you're probably going to give a little bit in concessions, $5,000 to $10,000 towards the buyer's closing costs. You're probably going to have to come off your price just a little bit. I mean, I would definitely buffer a good $10,000 to $15,000 so that whenever you do get that offer, you're not saying, well, they're not giving me everything I want, so we're going to walk away. You have to have realistic expectations about what's happening. And
I think to that point you were saying just a second ago, I think that what we're seeing with this kind of oversaturation of inventory or the trend that direction is it's a lot of people that are realizing the market is starting to shift a little bit. And they're like, oh, I may have missed out a couple of years ago. Let's get the house on the market. Let's try to get what we can get for it. Mm-hmm. And so they come in and it's like you're saying that they're still kind of thinking from that 2-3 years ago when the market kind of had been at this crazy high. And so that's why I think you also see more inventory right now that's out there, because I looked at a local development, I guess it was last week, and I noticed there was, I think, 10 or 11 homes in that small community that were for sale. And it's like everybody's realizing, okay, the market seems to have shifted. The prices of these homes that are now selling are starting to fall. I mean, some of these are 100 to 150,000 less than they were just a year ago. And I think that that's why you're seeing so much more out there. It's like, okay, if I don't sell now, I'm going to miss out on any profit that I could have potentially had. And so I think that could be part of the reason why we're seeing more inventory as well, just because you've got those people that are slow to list and they're trying to get what they can. So.
Absolutely. Well, okay. So our inventory numbers here, let's look at this. I'll pull this one up for Tullahoma. New active inventory is 95. So in May of 2024, we have the number of new houses on the market is 95. Wow. Last year, it was 72. So it's gone up. Just like you said, those sellers are saying, I want to try and catch the tail end of this. Like, I need to make this happen. Closings are down by just a smidge, but that average sales price is up. Like, we're still seeing 4% roughly price appreciation year over year. And I think that as this buyer demand, this fickle buyer is changing, we're really going to be able to tell where our price is heading in the next 6 to 9 months. I think about what is it that buyers are actually asking for when they're purchasing a home. You get more bang for your buck asking for closing costs than you do asking for a price reduction. Being able to, put money towards a rate buy down. You might have a down payment. You might be able to pay the closing costs for the loan, but wouldn't it be nice to get an extra $10,000 so that you can pay for a rate buy down or a 2-1 buy down or, something different like that? They're using those dollars that they're asking from sellers to make better mortgage payments, to be able to, buy that loan for better. So I'll be interested to see where prices actually land.
Yeah. And from the banking side of things, you got to think that the bank is using that purchase price as your basis for the value. So whenever we look at financing, we have to use either the purchase price or the value of the home, whichever is less. And so if you are buying a house at X and you go to them and ask them to lower your purchase price, then that's going to shift what your percentage of how much you can finance is. But if that purchase price stays where it's at and you get, say, a $10,000 or $15,000 concession from the seller to cover your closing costs, that money you would have paid for closing costs can now go towards your down payment and lower your loan to value. And so there's a great thought process there as well, that if they just lower their purchase price, well, now you've cut into how much you could have financed if you're looking at trying to finance the maximum amount you can to stay under that, say, 80 or 85% purchase price loan to value. So that's another side of things where, like you said, you're better off in some situations to get that concession of, hey, can you pay $6,000 or $10,000 in closing costs? And that money that you would have had to have paid out of your own pocket as a buyer can now go towards, maybe it's going to go to your down payment. Maybe it's going to go towards fixing up the home. Maybe it's going to go to something like that. So just make your money work for you.
Absolutely. And there's ways that you can save that $5,000 or $10,000. I mean, to me, $5,000 or $10,000 is pennies on a loan. Your interest that you're paying over the lifetime of the loan, I don't think people realize just how astronomical that number is. You're paying double for your house just to secure a loan to be able to stay in it. If you have a really good debt payoff plan, if you're like, man, I really wish that I could have gotten $5,000 to $10,000 off of that loan, make extra payments and reduce your interest amount, $5,000 to $10,000, because you've been smart about, moving it that direction. The less that you have to pay for your money, the better off you're going to be in the long run.
I mean, but you can look at, hey, I'm having to, it's kind of difficult to explain without some kind of way to chart it or draw it out. But if you think about it, you're better off to, say, have 0.25% or 0.5% lower interest rate for the life of the loan, say 15, 20, or 30 years, than you are to have maybe $10,000 or $15,000 off of the purchase price. I mean, that's something you have to think about. And one thing Mandy and I did several years ago was we refinanced to a 15-year mortgage. And when we did that, to see the amount of our payment going to principal versus interest, it is astronomical. To see that difference in how much is actually going to principal versus how much is going to interest when you're on that 15-year loan as opposed to a 30. Now, not everybody can do a 15, and I understand that, but if it's possible and you can make that payment, that interest, and as they say, every 15-year loan pays off in 15 years or less.
It does.
And so, if you get a 30-year loan, you're not necessarily always going to pay it off in 15 because you've got that tendency, we don't have to pay the extra payment or whatever. So if you have that in your capacity to get that lower interest rate on that 15-year term, if you look at that amortization schedule and see how much is actually going to principal each month, it's like it flipped. It was like 2/3 of our payment was going to interest and 1/3 was going to principal when we were on a 30. But when you flip that, it's like it was the opposite. It's crazy. So.
Yes. I just don't think that people understand the cost of money. We're about to talk about some different ways to be frugal. And when you go to the grocery store, the taxes are the taxes, the price is the price. Whenever you go to a yard sale, you're haggling somebody, 25 cents, 50 cents, and you feel really good about that deal. When somebody buys a home and they get $20,000 off the price of the home, again, that's great. Good. I'm glad you got $20,000 off the price of the home. But if you're not thinking holistically about what it costs to purchase a home, then in the end, are you really winning when you got that $20,000 off? It's tough. It's really tough. And it's so hard. And again, it's not taught. It's not something that people teach you in school. I remember in college talking about amortization schedules and thinking this is really fun and what a scam. But here I am, I'm just trying to tell people, if you want to buy a home and you want to do it in a cost-effective way, then you cannot look at your purchase price the same way that you do a deal in a garage sale.
That's right. That's very true. Well, you mentioned it, so let's make a transition. So we'll get into the next section of the podcast, and that is being frugal and finding deals. And you and I both have had conversations about this. We're all about trying to find the best deals, be frugal. Mandy is a phenomenal person of finding deals and being frugal. She's got all the rebate things that you click through the links and get cash back and all those things. So Rachel, you mentioned this a minute ago. Let's talk about the next section of the podcast and kind of the title of today's podcast, which is being frugal and finding those deals that everybody's looking for. Mandy does a great job here in our household of using the cash back, things that you click through links and get cash back and all those things. So let's talk about some ways that you and I have found that we can be frugal and find those deals.
Yes, absolutely. I love that she does that. All I'm thinking is Ibotta, the app,
she's a huge Ibotta
fan.
fan.
Yes, it's a great app for sure. There's 3 different spots that I think we're going to touch on whenever it comes to being frugal. First of all, the one that only applies to me is the homeschool one. And I think one of the biggest struggles people have whenever it comes to thinking about homeschooling is how expensive it's going to end up being, because you're having to buy all of the curriculum. There's a lot of things that you're having to do that you don't have to do whenever you send your kid to public school. Obviously, you send them to private school, you're paying a premium to get private education, that kind of stuff. But for homeschooling, I have to have all of the supplies at my house. If I'm going to teach art, I have to have my art supplies. If I'm going to teach science, then I need to have a book on science to be able to teach my kids. It can easily get upwards of $300 to $400 per kid per school year.
Wow.
To have an entire set of curriculum for them to be able to learn throughout the year. And so some things that I've done to improve that dollar amount is obviously, shopping frugal, looking for people who have already used a particular curriculum. Maybe their, second child is in between my second grader or my third grader. And so I can borrow their book for a year and then give it back to him the next year. So obviously, like, getting into some homeschooling groups and swapping some stuff out is important. The Dollar Tree has been invaluable whenever it comes to anything extra, related. They actually have curriculum there. Wow. They have like supplementary curriculum. I wouldn't say like go to Dollar Tree and buy their math books and call it math, but you have some extra support stuff, morning work, if you want to give your kids some extra things there. And then, of course, manipulatives from Dollar Tree are fantastic. So you've got like math counters, you've got your ABCs, you've got all like flashcards, different like pop socket things, anything that they can touch that they can use to learn. You can typically find it at Dollar Tree, which is really great. There are some.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, dude, you should totally check out the teacher education section of Dollar Tree. I'm actually about to do a TikTok on it, so stay tuned.
I look forward to it.
Absolutely. So then some other places that you could go would be like your thrift bookstores. Thriftbooks.com is amazing. As a homeschool mom, I am considered an educator. So I have a letter from Home Life Academy that says that I'm an educator. And when I go to these stores, I can get a discount because of it. Wow. So whenever I order through Thrift Books, not only am I getting, this curriculum for less, and usually it's in really good condition, super fast shipping, really fast getting it to my house. Not only am I getting it for less, but I'm getting it for even less than less because I'm using that teacher discount code whenever I'm doing it, which is great.
It's crazy. I didn't know you could do that.
Oh, you totally can do it. It's great. Have you heard of the Happy Bookshelf in Murfreesboro?
I have not.
Okay, that place is awesome. They have an entire wall of curriculum. Typically used bookstores do not have a curriculum section because of all the people write in it and they do whatever and it can be outdated and whatnot. But they have like some special disclaimers on it. And I found everything that I was trying to buy inside of that store. And if they didn't have the edition that I wanted, I was at least able to put my hands on the curriculum, open it up and say, okay, Life of Fred feels like this. Matthew C. feels like this. Horizons Math feels like this. I think JD's going to like Horizons the best. And so I was able to get what he needed without having to like go through some kind of crazy exchange process because I didn't like it.
You get to see what each one offers and then, make your decision according to. So.
Yes. Homeschool conventions are good for that, but you have to pay for those. So this was a free way to do it.
Yeah. And it's your time. You have to go to them.
Yes, definitely.
Time is money,
oh my gosh, time is so money. And you don't realize it until you're running out of both.
Yeah, exactly. You can't get that back either. I mean, you can always, do a side hustle or you can, make more money doing different things, but time is something you just can't get back. So
no, absolutely. The final thing for that's just the library. We're going to talk about the library with travel too, but it's the most obvious answer.
Yeah, Mandy uses that. She absolutely loves the Libby app, and so you use your local library to check in, and you can like get books and Kindle books and audiobooks, all kind of stuff like that, and it's all free. So
good,
so good. Let's see. The next one I think we were going to talk about was groceries. What's some hacks or things that you found in order to save money with groceries? Because Lord knows every time we go to Walmart, it's $150, $200. So
it's a lot. I like to look at what the state average is. So there's on the Tennessee website, it puts out this. If you have a family of 4, this is how much money you would spend if you have a frugal budget, if you have an average budget, or if you have like excessive amounts of money for groceries. And while obviously my income dictates what I'm actually spending on groceries, like what can I actually afford, I do try and use that as a guideline to, okay, I need to be saving money on groceries this month. We're going to go down to the $100 per person idea and try and buy groceries based off of that. That way, again, you kind of have like a target. Without actually asking your friends, like, hey, how much do you spend on groceries? It's kind of hard to know, like, what should I be doing?
Well, and you should never go and buy groceries when you're hungry because every time we go, like if we go in and I'm starving, like I will get everything. And then I'm like, when I get home and I'm like, well, what did we buy?
None of this makes
because
sense.
it's all junk. Yeah. And it's nothing that you can make a meal with. It's typically just like chips and dip. And
It's like Golden Corral for the entire month. You just got a buffet of whatever you can find. Hope for the best.
yeah, exactly. And then every time you go out to eat, it's like $50. And so I don't know.
Yes, even going through a drive-through.
Yeah, $35
Like
to go to the drive-through.
Right. Mid-grade restaurants don't exist anymore. I mean, you go to like a sit-down restaurant and it's $150. You go to a drive-through and like McDonald's costs a family of four, 45 to $50.
I can't imagine if you have like 6 or 8 kids. Like,
for so many reasons, I can't imagine.
golly, yeah, there definitely needs to be like, I don't know. There needs to be some relief in the grocery and all that. We do have a membership at Costco, and I will say that typically once or twice a month we'll go to Costco and we'll buy our bulk things that we need, like toilet paper, paper towels. We do buy some food on a every 2-week basis or something up there, and it'll last us for 2 weeks, like snack bars and those kind of things that we can buy in a bigger pack. They'll last us longer than if we just buy like a small pack at Walmart. But, that's one of the things that we've done. And then we'll buy our other stuff that we need kind of on a more daily, weekly basis. We'll buy, at Walmart. But, I mean, you go to Costco, you're going to spend $300 because you're buying everything in massive quantities. So.
And then all you're eating is fig bars for 2 weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
So with that, with our Costco, we have a Costco membership too. And when I bring those bars home, like I've got the fig bars, the regular granola bars, anything that's individually wrapped, I put up on a shelf, and I will only put out, like I have a snack basket for the boys in a locked pantry, and they get 2 snacks per day. My children they eat well, but
they're rationed.
They are rationed. And I can get one Costco trip to actually last me the entire month because I'm not letting them free range on granola bars for an entire week. They'll eat through the entire box in a week if I'm not careful. And so I try and make sure that I'm rationing that. But if I can know like price per bar, what it costs, I can find deals in some of these other places and know like, okay, this is actually a deal for like, for instance, we went to Ollie's one day and, you have these like the kids Cliff bars. Yep. I mean, you're paying roughly $1.75 per bar every time you buy them from the store.
It's crazy.
It's wild. Ollie's had them, and Ollie's is already cheap, but then they had them in the 50% off cart, and the price per bar was 35 cents.
Oh my gosh.
They were expiring it was like a month and a half. I had like 45 days left before they expired. And I have thoughts on expired food. But
the only thing I'm really like against on expired is like milk. I don't know what it is about milk, but when hits at expiration date, like I'll do the sniff test and like it has a weird like aftertaste if it's going south. And like I have been known to dump out a whole like half gallon of milk because it's gotten past it. Because if it's got that taste, I'm done. I can't do it. But like you're talking about prepackaged food and stuff. I don't really care if it's expired. Like that's
no. And 35 cents a bar, I bought everyone in the cart. I was like, this is coming home. We're rationing it. And they were great. It was awesome.
Well, and I have found Amazon, of course, you and I have our own thoughts about Amazon, and we're both affiliates with Amazon. And so there'll probably be some Amazon links pop up in social media from time to time. But, I've gotten to where if there's something that we use a lot of, I check Amazon to see if they have it in a larger pack and have it shipped straight to the house.
Yes.
So let's see, these core powers. I don't know if you can see it. Well, you can't see it because we've got the low data mode, but I found these core power high protein milkshakes, and these things sell for like $4.75 a piece in the store. And I went on Amazon and I bought a 12 pack for $30. And so it breaks out to less than $3 a bottle. And they're great grab and go protein shakes. That's the link I'll put in the show notes below. But finding those things that it just seemed crazy to pay $5 for a bottle with tax when I can just go buy a 12 pack for $20 less. I mean, for the same amount, it's insane. So
absolutely. And if you're like paying attention to your budget and okay, I can go to Costco this week and that can use up the money for this week's budget. And then I'm going to go to the grocery store and get this week. I mean, if you're kind of paying attention roughly 2 to 3 weeks out, I have my whole month. This is what I'm making based off of what I have in my pantry. And then from week to week adjusting, you're not going to go to the grocery store and buy something in bulk and have no money left over for, something else without and not actually have food to eat
Right.
throughout the week. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
100%. 100%.
Yes.
I'm going to get off groceries and hit this one before we move to the travel, because travel is the one I want to hit. But you talked about house hacking recently, and I just want to hit on that because I think this is another way if you're looking for maybe a frugal way to live, or and I had heard about this, but I didn't hear this term until you reached out to me and asked if I knew what it was. So I'd love for you to talk just a second about what house hacking is and how this might be a way to live more frugal.
Yes. Okay. So house hacking is awesome. It's where you're taking your personal residence and you're making money off of it. You're trying to figure out a way to make money off of your personal residence. So that could be like if you have a extra bedroom, you're renting your extra bedroom out. Most people think college roommates. You have 3 or 4 people living inside of a house. One of them owns the house and the other people are paying rent to them. So their mortgage is being paid for, being paid down, and they're not the ones who are at the end of the day actually, doing it. If you have an in-law suite or some sort of like additional apartment on your property, you could be renting that out and trying to help pay down your mortgage or get some income more quickly that way. I have a house in McMinnville, and that was the one that sort of sparked this whole house hacking conversation. It's a duplex, and so if I didn't have children and the setup was a little bit different, then I would live on one side and I would rent the other side out. And the only reason I say that about not having children, it's not that I wouldn't live in a duplex with children. This one's a 2-bed, 1-bath. And so if I were to do this with the boys, it would not be a good fit for us. But if we didn't have the boys, it would be a great fit to be able to live on one side, rent the other side out. And then that way you have your mortgage essentially being covered, and then you can use that to go towards other things. I mean, you can either use it as income and, pay for the things that you need, or you can, just pretend like you don't have anybody living on the other side and pay it down double.
Yeah. And I would say that, Mandy and I've been married it'll be 19 years, and we've been in our current house for probably 14 years. But there was a period that we lived in 2 different duplexes before we had Jack, and right after we got married. And we did have a first house that we lived in for 3 years. And just thinking back, when we rented that duplex the very first time, if we had just owned a duplex instead of buying a house, we could have owned that duplex and rented out the other side that we were living in and stayed in that house and let it pay for itself. And then once you got to that stage, I mean, there was probably a almost 5-year period that we were either in that first house or the duplex. If that had all been in a duplex and we were renting out the other half, I mean, you essentially could have doubled up on your mortgage, paid it off. And then you've got a paid for asset going into when you're ready to, build your, hopefully either your forever home or that second home or whatever. And so if I could give any advice to someone that's, younger, that's looking to get into real estate, house hacking, like you were mentioning, renting that one half and living in the other half is a phenomenal way. Because I mean, today with the rental rates where they're at, you can make almost what you need to make on half of it to pay that mortgage. So.
Oh, absolutely. This one that we've got in McMinnville is priced at $274,900. And right now, a starter home is $285,000 if you're lucky and you're looking in the right areas. And so for this one, what are you losing? You're losing some square footage. What are you gaining? You're gaining additional income, paying that house down, using that home to leverage yourself into the next home. Because the people who win in these tough real estate markets are folks who have a lot of equity in a prior purchase that they can roll into the next space or use for the next space while keeping the property.
Yeah, and I mean maximizing that equity for your benefit. Like that's the great thing about like Mandy and I. Thank the Lord, we're in a great position here. We built our house, 13, 14 years ago, and the amount of equity because we built our house when we built it at $68 a foot. I mean, you can't even touch a house today for that, but you think of the appreciation of that asset over the last 14, 15 years. I mean, we're sitting on a lot of equity that at some point we could leverage into other properties that could then be making money. And so
Yes.
it's like you said, building up that equity is giving you more capacity to, in some ways have properties that generate and you can't replace, I guess, paid for properties.
Right.
But there's also not a problem with using those properties to leverage to gain more because it's that exponential growth of the revenue generating properties that is going to build that portfolio. If that's your desire, is to have that investment portfolio, utilizing the equity to buy more property that's then generating more revenue for you. That's how you can, get to a place where you own, say, 10 or 15 or 20 doors that you're generating, let's say $150,000 a year just in rental income. So
Absolutely. I love it.
I do too.
That's a great frugal tip.
We could have a whole nother podcast
A whole
about
podcast just on that.
investment real estate. We'll TBD on that one. So let's transition.
Podcast to you in June 2025. Keep going.
There you go. Let's transition into travel because I think both you and I have some great tips that we can provide on travel and being frugal. And I'll start out with one and then we'll kick it over to you and then we'll kind of bounce back and forth. But the first one, it seems like it seems counterproductive to, trust someone else to do something for you. But one thing that Mandy and I have found when we're going to say Disney or Orlando for Universal, having a travel agent, a lot of people think that having a travel agent costs them more money. They think, oh, I've got to be, paying them in some way. But ultimately, I relate having a travel agent for those type trips to having a real estate agent for a purchase of a house. The difference being obviously a real estate agent is getting paid commission. The travel agent is getting some compensation through forms of rewards or whatever with whoever that it was booked through, but they are your liaison. They're on your behalf taking care of your travel plans, and they're who you can call in the event that something goes south or you need a person that can get in touch with you. Having a really good qualified travel agent can honestly be a way to get you a better deal. We're going to Orlando in the fall and did not, we tried to see what we could work out. We had a travel agent that got us in the Hard Rock Hotel, which is the premier hotel there at Universal. And we were able to get 5 park days for the price of 3. And we got all of that for the price of one of the lower level hotels we were looking at originally. And so having someone that knows how to navigate that area, much like a real estate agent, is vital when you're looking to try to, book a trip of any kind. Just wanted to throw that one out there. I think travel agent, a lot of people just have this misconception that, oh, well, travel agent's going to cost me more money. No.
And they are invaluable. Both times that we've gone to a Disney or Universal resort, we've had travel agents, and both times they have gotten us better deals than what we would have if we'd have planned it ourselves. And the first time we actually ended up we were going during Hurricane Ian, and the travel agent got us off of the campground and into a resort because the campground had been flooded. It was wild, but she was like, get in the car, drive, go that direction, and don't worry about it, and I'll take care of it. So I did.
There you go.
It was awesome. Yes, definitely with travel agencies. I would not go there without one.
Yeah. So what are some of the ways that you? I know y'all like to travel with a camper. What are some ways that y'all travel and save money?
Yeah. So a lot of the reason why we travel with the camper is to save money. I mean, while I have a essentially a third vehicle in my driveway. What we're paying to stay on a beach with a beach view is $25 per night. And that's you
crazy.
you can't buy a beach view for $20 a night. There's a lot more work that goes into it. And I recognize that camping's not for everybody, but if you have ever been curious about camping and you want to try it out before committing long-term, you can rent a camper to stay on a beach. Of course, you're paying probably closer to what you would pay at a hotel. But if, again, long-term, you're looking at camping as a solution to affordable traveling, then try it out first with like an RV share website.
Mandy and I have talked about that. I think it would be the thing I like, or what intrigues me about traveling with a camper and RV is, when you travel, you kind of have it set up like you do at home. So you have your stuff, you have your things, you're sleeping in your bed, you have your normal coffee. Like, it sounds crazy, but Mandy and I, for our Saturday and Sunday mornings, we drink regular drip Folgers coffee. And when we travel, we always miss our just normal coffee. And so, those are things that you can't pack if you're staying in a hotel very easily. Whereas if you had a camper, you could have that, with you kind of at all times. And then the second thing, we have a dog. And one of the biggest expenses for us when we travel is having to board our dog. And, when you're flying and you're staying in a hotel, like, it's very difficult. You can do it, but it's very difficult to travel with a pet. Yes. And so I think last time we went on a week-long vacation and we boarded our dog, it was almost $500 just to board a dog for a week. And that's something you have to factor in to your travel expenses. I mean, that's another night of, a hotel stay, or, a couple of days at a theme park if you're traveling for going to a theme park. So, I mean, there's that is what the RV camper life kind of intrigues me, is there's several ways that it does create a savings. Like you said, there's a lot of work, but, it depends on how much you want to work for it. So.
Yes, it definitely solves some problems, but it does create others. I do like taking the dogs with us because it does save on dog sitting. But again, I mean, if you're going to somewhere like a theme park, and you want to be there for 8 to 12 hours, then some of the campgrounds will have like doggy services where they'll get a key to your camper and they'll go to it, and for $25 they'll let your dogs out for you for that day. But it just kind of depends. I do like taking them with me. The boys like having them with us. Oh, yeah. Some of the other thoughts was like either book out really far in advance or book last minute. And I know that's like two totally opposite ends of the spectrum.
But it's true. Yeah. Like, depending on, when you book, being so far in advance, you'll see typically better prices, better deposit options. As you get closer, you take more risk because there's not usually a deposit option. You either have to pay in full or almost in full because you are last minute. But sometimes you get those last minute deals as they're trying to backfill those spots that are still vacant. Yes. One time, Mandy and I went down to Destin, and we didn't book anything. It was kind of like what you're talking about. We just took off and started driving down toward Destin. And This was for an anniversary. And we had 3 different locations that we had looked at on VRBO. And we kind of drove by the locations, looked at which one we liked. Well, one of them was a 24th floor penthouse suite with a rooftop balcony of a condo. And when we got there, we called them up and we said, hey, I see that your room is still not booked for this 3 days that we're in town. Just wanted to see if you'd be willing to accept $125 a night to rent this room. And I think they were at like 2 something at the time. And they didn't have it booked. And the lady was like, you know what? Sure. We'll rent it to you for $125 a night. Like, today, this thing rents for $400 and $500. But at the time, 125 was a deal. And she was like, just give me until 3:00 to get it cleaned. And, we'll have that. And so that's what we did. We went and had not booked a thing and literally booked it when we got to town.
That's
and
wild.
Got it for, and when I say penthouse, like, it was a 2-story condo with a rooftop balcony super, super nice. Great view of the Gulf. Like we've been back to that same condominium again. Love the area. It's a great location. But to book something last second, sometimes, if you're willing to take that risk, I mean, if we got down there and they had all said no, we were going to be in some serious trouble. But, I guess
carry
we've
a
been
tent
finding
with
the
you
Holiday
just in
Inn.
case you need to. Oh yeah, the Holiday Inn. That's a good one too. No, I love it. Yes, I think those are great. I think staying in the same place, just like consistently going back to the same area so you know where the deals are in those areas is really good. But since we got the truck, it was kind of a funny moment the other day. Nick was like, well, we don't have DVDs. I mean, we have some DVDs at home, but like, we're just not in a DVD generation with these kids anymore. And he was like, what are we going to do? We're going to have to get a stock that's going to be expensive. And I was like, we're going to go to the library and we're going to rent a DVD from the library.
You could probably find a $20 DVD player on, well, you said it has one, right?
It has it. It has the onboard entertainment, but we don't have like a huge selection. I have a ton of VHS player things. And then of course we have streaming services, and I haven't figured out if I can stream to those or not, but regardless, that's using up phone data.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go to the library and get some DVDs.
I have 2 full drawers in a sideboard that we have in our foyer that are full of DVDs. And thinking back,
I'll just call y'all.
What kind of a sucker were we for buying? Like, this was when streaming was not a thing. Like, this is when Netflix still mailed you DVDs in the mail. But like, we always had to buy the movie if you wanted to watch it more than once, because that was the only way you could watch it. And now that most of these are available on streaming services, it's like, I basically have a bunch of cases with little metal round discs that are worthless.
Completely useless. Right. Now they're not, because I have a car that needs it.
That's so cool. That's so cool.
Back to the library.
So so you talked about camping and RVing. When you're at your destination, what are some things that you have found as ways to save money?
Yes. I mean, the most expensive thing is always food. I mean, we don't buy tchotchkes. I'm not there buying unless it's just really special. Like, we're not getting airbrush t-shirts and hats and whatever. We'll take pictures and, I'll print the pictures out. But most of the time it's food. And usually what I'll do for the boys is get an adult meal and have them split it. So we'll buy 3 adult meals instead of 2 adult meals and 2 kids meals. Half the time Logan doesn't eat anyway, but especially at Dollywood, like, I will bring the majority of our food into the park because you can. And then I will get just like I'll get the kids chicken tender meal for the boys. They'll each get a chicken tender, and they're huge. I mean, it's not like you're getting, a little McNugget.
Yeah.
It's a big chicken tender. And then I'll already have like the applesauce, the yogurt, whatever it is on the sides. And I will not buy snacks for the boys as we're going through the park. We might get a funnel cake for fun by the end, but typically I have food on me at all times whenever we're traveling.
So that's what we do. So when we go to Disney, and we'll do the same thing when we go to Universal, we will carry a Camelback, and it's a 2-liter Camelback, and we'll fill the Camelback with ice, the whatever you call it, the bladder or whatever. We'll fill it with ice and then fill it with water. So the ice keeps it cold, and then it'll melt and you have water. And then we'll take the pouches inside that, the different pouches that are part of the backpack, and we'll slide refrigerated, like Perfect bars and different things down in there. And so we'll go the whole day, and we don't typically eat at the places within the park because they're extremely expensive. And
so expensive.
We will just use the Camelback to stockpile our snacks that we've bought at Walmart or Costco for, bulk. And then we'll carry them in, and that's what we use during the day. And then we'll typically plan a dinner, either at Disney or at one of the locations where we're at. And that's kind of our nicer meal for the day. But we typically will only have one really nice paid meal, and then we'll have different snacks, like you said, throughout the whole day. So
I love it. That's brilliant. We have one of those. I really want to fill it up with Dr. Pepper, but I know it will ruin it. So
Jack would not have any opposition to that. And it is what it is. But I mean, we all share it. We all stay hydrated, and you can easily refill that Camelback throughout the day. So it's a great solution to stay hydrated, especially in the summer fall heat of Florida.
Mm-hmm.
But stay snacked up as well. So,
I love it.
I did want to tell you. So, as you know, we're going on a cruise next month, and this is just a little nugget that I found out. So, I'm frugal when it comes to buying tickets and all this stuff like that. So I booked with Royal Caribbean, and that's the one that I don't typically use a travel agent, because if you call Royal Caribbean, when you get a representative on the phone, typically they are a travel agent. They're through Royal, but they kind of guide you through. They'll let you pick your room, those kind of things. And I always want to know like where we're staying, what deck we're on, what's around us, what's above us, because if you have activities above you, you're not gonna be able to sleep, all that stuff. And so I called and booked with Royal, got everything booked, and then wound up calling back, and we were able to get a slightly larger room in a different part of the ship. The people don't know this, but a lot of times once you book your room, you have the ability to kind of bid on an upgraded room, and you can bid on a junior suite, which is a very nice room. You get double the points with Royal. And you can bid on it for the cruise that we're going on in July. You can bid on it. I think it was like $240 a person more that you would get charged. But if you got upgraded, you're basically getting a junior suite for $240 a person, which you can't book it for that. But what they're doing is if they don't sell out those, then they're going to start going to that bidding process. So they'll reach out and say, hey, we've got availability. Would you like an upgrade? And then you get charged at that point. So that's a way that you can maybe get a better room for a cheaper price. And then checking the prices. People don't realize this, but especially with Royal, and then we fly Southwest. With Southwest especially, you can call and have them, like if the prices go down, they'll honor it. And so on both of our flights for Southwest down and back, I have called later. And so when I booked it the first time, a week later, I called Southwest because our return flight had dropped. And so they gave me a $61 per person flight credit for that trip. And that one I had to book with cash. Well, then the flight down this week, the price got cut in half. I don't know why. I don't know what happened, but for whatever reason, the fare went from almost $400 down to $200, and I had booked it with points. And so I got a $27,000 or 27,000 point credit back because the ticket had gone down. And like literally all I did was call Southwest, 5 minutes on the phone. And I said, hey, I see the fare has dropped. Is there any way that, you can honor the new price? And she's like, yeah, sure. It's already calculating. You're going to get this much back on your credit. So now I have 27,000 more points to use towards our next trip. And
my goodness.
It's those things that I don't think people realize. Like some people just book the stuff and then they never think about it.
I just took notes.
And daily I am checking, okay, has my Royal cruise gone down? With cruising, you have shore excursions, you have packages. Like another thing that we did was we purchased the VIP package. It's called the Key with Royal. But with the Key, you get priority boarding before anybody else, and they give you a welcome lunch. And it includes your internet. So this is where it's crazy. So we're paying $36 a person per day for this VIP experience. Internet is $24 a day. And so most people like to have internet anyway. So I would have paid the $24 a day anyway, just to have the internet. So if there was anything I needed to respond to, I could. So for basically $12 more a person per day. So let's say $24, we're going on a $24 per day, 4-day cruise. I mean, you can do the math, but it's really not that much. And we get, priority boarding, priority disembarkment. We get, all of these crazy things. They check your luggage, so you're not carrying your stuff around until you get, because your room's typically not available until like 3:00, but we can get on as early as like 10:30 in the morning, which means we can start using activities. We can start eating because your food's included. All of that stuff. And those packages, they change on a daily basis. So like you can book it. If the package goes down, you cancel it and you rebook it. And so it's just stuff like that that people probably don't realize, that you can save money if you just keep checking to see if the price changes. And a lot of times it does.
That's wild.
You know,
That is
so
such a great tip.
Imagine if you're going to, say, Disney or Orlando to Universal, and you check a week later and the price is cut in half, and you could just call and say, hey, I see the price has gone down. Can you give me a credit? And they do. It's kind of the same thing.
Crazy. No, I love it. That's a great tip. I just took notes.
See, that's awesome. I'm glad I could help you. Okay, well then let's hurry up. This is rapid fire questions. So we're going to move into the last
yes.
segment.
Oh, we have 1 minute. Oh, I'm so excited. I forgot about that.
Yes. So I'm going to set a timer. Let's see if we can get, I may give it a minute 30. How about that?
Yeah, because of the internet.
Yeah, the internet might mess us up. So we're going to do a minute 30 here.
Okay.
And I have 25 questions. These are 2 answer questions, 2 option questions. And you just have to say the first one that comes to your mind. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
This is not going to be rapid fire.
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Okay, here we go. I'm going to start. 1, 2, 3. Okay, cookout or going out?
Going out.
Okay, chicken or steak?
Steak.
Pasta or salad?
Pasta.
Podcast or audiobook?
Ooh. Podcast.
Long or short form podcast?
Long.
Burger or hot dog?
Burger.
Pool or lake?
Pool.
Beach or mountains?
Mountains.
Mac or Windows?
Mac.
Pedicure or massage?
Massage.
Movie theater or movie at home?
Movie at home.
Summer or winter?
Winter.
Text or phone call?
Text.
Movie or book?
Book.
Kindle or real book?
Kindle.
Kindle or audiobook?
Audiobook.
I knew you were going there. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Okay. Black or with sugar and cream?
Oh, I am like a straight black coffee drinker.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe that. City or country?
Oh gosh, country.
This one's got 3 options: car, truck, or SUV.
SUV.
It really is the best of both worlds. Gas or electric?
Oh, gas. Sorry.
Paddleboard or kayak?
Neither. Kayak.
Disney or Universal?
Universal.
Earbuds or over the ear?
Earbuds.
There we go.
Was that 25?
I think it may have been 24. Hold on, I missed one. What was the last one? Oh no, what was the last one? I've lost
Earbuds.
it. Oh, it was gas or log fireplace. There it was.
Oh, gas.
There you go. See, 25 questions, rapid fire. It was like a minute 45, so we were very, very close.
We were close. Go team.
That was fun.
That was fun. I like that.
Well, I feel like we're going to have to really aggressively end this. So, but it's been a lot of fun. We got it under an hour and a half, which I think is better than our last one. So there you go. And that was with
It'll
all the
probably
buffering.
be even less than that with all the buffering and the having to remove the, hey, can you cut this, please?
Well, it's been fun, and I can't wait to be on your podcast. I know we've talked about getting together, and so we're going to definitely have to do that. But I do think that we should probably just do it in person because it's going to be easier. So,
oh yes, 1,000%. We'll get in the studio. It'll be a blast.
We'll figure it out. We'll get in the studio. It'll be a lot of fun. So, Rachel, thanks for being on the podcast. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day.
You too. All right, I'll talk to you soon.
See ya.
Bye.